It has become very apparent to many Toronto Raptors fans that this team needs a true center, and one that could be available in the offseason is Rudy Gobert. So in today's video, we're going to discuss the possibility of the Raptors trading for the All-Star center and what it would look like. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It's Jacob here, back with AmateurHour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. If you want the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news all throughout the offseason, then you need to be subscribed to AmateurHour Sports and help us on a road to 9,000 subscribers. But our video today, we want to discuss the Raptors trading for Rudy Gobert. We're going to discuss multiple things regarding this situation. We're going to start out with what Rudy Gobert brings to teams and what he would bring to the Raptors. Then we are going to discuss what that trade could look like, and then we are going to finalize if the Raptors should try and make this trade happen. Because the Toronto Raptors, it's been very apparent for a long time that there is a lack of a true center on this team. Now, they make up for it. This positionless game full of 6'9", two-way athletic players, it kind of makes up for it. But there certainly are situations where a true center is needed on this team. And, knowing, with all these athletic guys, knowing the offensive prowess that so many of the players on the roster have, like all the talent within this roster, giving them that anchor of a defender at the back, that all of our athletic wings can usher their checks into the rim where Rudy Gobert can meet them for a block shot or just deter so many shots. Like, that seems like a very good opportunity for the Raptors, because there's all these situations where like OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam are ushering their players, kind of keeping them at bay as they travel towards the interior of the paint. But then there's no big to meet them there. There's no Serge Ibaka. There's no Marc Gasol to meet them there and help fully get that stop. And Rudy Gobert is certainly a player that could give them that. Now, Rudy Gobert, his situation with the Utah Jazz, it seems dire at this point. The Utah Jazz have been a little bit of a letdown over the last few years in, a team that really could have threatened for an NBA championship, but ultimately never really got any close, as they haven't even gone to a Western Conference Finals yet. And last season against a very depleted Clippers team, that was the team and that was the opportunity for the Utah Jazz to do it. And in that series, Rudy Gobert really got played off the floor, and there's been a lot of problems between him and fellow All-Star Donovan Mitchell, who is a star who certainly can raise his level, the level of his game for playoff situations. And after another disappointing first-round exit this year to the Dallas Mavericks, there's going to be questions about that Utah Jazz roster. They may want to break up that star partnership, and they're obviously going to keep Donovan Mitchell over keeping Rudy Gobert. So this is where the Raptors could come into play. Rudy Gobert, as far as fit with the team, he would be a starter. The Raptors wouldn't be able to keep all five of their core starters in Van Vliet, Barnes, Trent, Siakam, and Anunoby. They couldn't keep all of them and also make a trade to get Rudy Gobert. So somebody would be out. Rudy Gobert would fit in. The Raptors are positionless enough that they can figure that out. Rudy Gobert would be the center on the team and would definitely improve the defense of the Raptors. That is a definite thing for the regular season, but as it comes to the playoffs, we have to wonder kind of what sort of impact Rudy Gobert could have. Rudy Gobert this season was excellent. Again, he was an all-star, and this, I would say, was his best season in the NBA, averaging over 15 points per game, just under 15 rebounds per game, and over 70% shooting from the field. That, along with being a great defender, he's a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. He would absolutely make the Toronto Raptors better if we brought him in. But we have to discuss as well what the trade would look like and how worth it would be. Because at the end of the day, as good of a defender that Rudy Gobert is, his influence on the games significantly diminishes in playoff situations. I was talking about the Clippers series last year, the Western Conference semis, where he actually got played off the floor in a lot of scenarios. And even though he was decent against the Dallas Mavericks here in the playoffs, it was just a limited sort of role that he could have. Being an all-star, you want that player to have such a key role and be such a key factor in your team progressing in the playoffs. And in the last few years, I just have not seen that from Rudy Gobert. I've seen it from Donovan Mitchell. There's questions about like how much of a superstar he can be, but still, I've seen Donovan Mitchell do it. I don't know if I've seen that from Rudy Gobert. And, the Jazz, I think it's likely that they will move on from Rudy Gobert in this summer, but let's talk about now the Raptors' involvement in this. So, what would a trade look like? And this is where it gets really difficult, because not a lot of players in the Raptors that you would be willing to part with, and not a lot of Raptors actually make this trade balanced. Doing this trade without a third team seems almost borderline impossible because Rudy Gobert is on one of the worst contracts in the NBA. When the Utah Jazz signed Rudy Gobert to a 5-year extension, I said the day of that signing that this is going to be one of the worst contracts in the NBA at some point, and honestly, we are starting to get towards that point. Rudy Gobert until 2025 to 2026 season, that season there, he is going to average $41 million a year, and this is an extremely backloaded contract. That 25-26 season in which Rudy Gobert is going to be 33 years old. Oh my goodness. He has a player option worth over $46.5 million. What were the Utah Jazz thinking? I understand you want to lock up your all-star. You want to give them the absolute most money possible to stay with your team, especially when you're a Utah Jazz market that, let's not beat around the bush here. They're like the Raptors. They do not attract high-quality free agents. So, sure, exceptions to that. You can't rely as the Utah Jazz on getting players in free agency. So when you have the really good players, you need to lock them up for an extended period of time. But that amount of money, how difficult is it going to be for the Utah Jazz to trade this guy? And the Raptors, I think Rudy Gobert would definitely make the Raptors better, and I would want him on this team. But I am staying as far away from that contract as I possibly can. I can't even give you possible trade scenarios here because they don't exist for the Raptors. There's not one single trade I could see that works for both teams and also balances out as far as salary goes. It just is not going to make sense. Masai Ujiri, if he were to make a trade for Rudy Gobert, it would completely destroy everything he has worked so hard to build with this young core, this young ascending core. And I do believe that the positionless game that the Toronto Raptors have been working with this season, and that's kind of the philosophy they want to use going forward, I believe that that is successful enough that you don't need to panic and make a trade for a center like Rudy Gobert. I'm not saying the Raptors don't need a center. I believe that this team needs a true center. It's not just like, you need him constantly, you need a really good true center. I don't believe that. There's a lot of talent on this team, but I think that a true center, a good rim protector, and Masai Ujiri himself has addressed this. He addressed this in his postseason comments, he understood that we need rim protection. He was asked, would the Raptors want to get a true center on this team, or are they sticking to the philosophy? And Masai Ujiri said there's no discrimination. What they want to do is bring in players that are going to help this team win. I believe a true center would help this team win. Look at this. The playoffs, we did a pretty good job on Joel Embiid. It would have been nice to have a true center in there as well to just help out with the load. And I think a lot of times, like I was saying earlier, you've got guys like Siakam, Anunoby, and even you go to Trent, Van Vliet, Barnes, all good defenders one-on-one. If they can usher their check towards the rim where they're met by a true center, I think it would really, really help out the defense on this team. But you don't need somebody who gets paid as much as Rudy Gobert. Look at the role that Khem Birch has with the Raptors, okay? When there's an injury, one of the main 5 guys are injured, Khem Birch typically starts, doesn't get a ton of play time, but has a role for this team. Had a role for this team in the playoffs as well, getting those early Joel Embiid minutes, maybe at the start of the first half. Sometimes you would get the start of the second half as well. But regardless, what Khem Birch brings to your team, why can't you go find somebody who's just a little bit better than Khem Birch, a little bit better on the glass, a little bit better on defense, that is also 2 to 3 inches taller than him? That's not going to be the most outrageous request and the most outrageous player to try to find in the offseason. And I like Khem Birch, but, there's certainly a possibility to replace him with a player like I just described. Not somebody who's making $40 million, but somebody who's making $6 to $12 million. Somebody in that range who can give you that sort of role and just give you that sort of option in a game where maybe the rebounding is not going well, or the rim protection, the points in the paint for the opposition, it's just absolutely killing you. In those situations, in that specific setting, the Raptors could use a player like that just to be able to go to. You don't need somebody who's getting 35 minutes a game in this true center position, but just to have the one on the roster to be able to help you out is, I think, necessary for this team. And as much as I think Rudy Gobert would help us out and would make us a much better team, I can't even stress, like, this is going to be the worst contract in the NBA. Unless there's just something like equally as bad, this is going to be the worst contract in the NBA at some point, or very close to it. Like, Rudy Gobert making $46.5 million at 33 years old, that's absurd. Like, I actually couldn't even believe it when the Utah Jazz offered him this contract. Like, when this news first broke, I actually could not believe it. And you can hear it in my voice. Like, this is not unprompted. Like, what were they thinking? As far as Rudy Gobert goes, I think there are teams in the league who have currently bad contracts, and at least when you get one like Rudy Gobert, that is a really good player who is going to help your team. Not everybody needs a player like that because we've seen his impact and maybe lack thereof in big playoff games, but there are teams that could use him. Like, I think the Dallas Mavericks, like, funny enough, who just beat the Jazz, I think the Dallas Mavericks and Rudy Gobert are a really good match. You give Luka Doncic like a really, really good pick and roll partner like that. Like, Dwight Powell's very good in the pick and roll, but you upgrade on Dwight Powell a lot in terms of output by getting Rudy Gobert, and you also just improve your defense tremendously. Like, I think that's a pretty good match for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, it'll be up to them if they want to take on that contract, but for a team that does have Davis Bertans, like, they could move on from that. Maybe they could get something involved there. Like, the Jazz, like, the Mavericks have some bad contracts that they can move on from. So that's just a little bit of a thought for myself. But as far as the Raptors goes, oh man, stay away from this one. Stay away completely. You can do a lot better than this. We're not in a position where we need to make win right now trades. We're also not in a position where we need to panic. I'm happy with what we have. I know there are improvements we can make. One of the key areas of improvement is rim protecting, and Rudy Gobert would solve that completely, but not for that amount of money. The Raptors are not even going to entertain the possibility of making this trade. Like, I can almost guarantee that. Masai is staying away from this. Bobby Webster staying away from this. If you want Rudy Gobert, I'm sorry, because it's just flat out not happening. So what do you think about Rudy Gobert to the Raptors? In all honesty, there's not really any rumors going on about this. This is just kind of a situation. I've seen Raptors fans talk about the possibility of bringing in Gobert, and I wanted to add in my 2 cents on my YouTube channel, as I would normally do, and I never claimed at any point in this video that this was actual concrete rumors. So let me know if you want Rudy Gobert on the Raptors or don't want Rudy Gobert on the Raptors in the comments down below, and we can start the discussion, because that is it for me for today. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please drop a like if you did enjoy. It goes a long way to supporting the channel, because when you like the video, it lets other people with similar interests to you know that this is a channel worth watching, and they're gonna come check it out. And if you're new, your first time watching, make sure you're subscribed to AmateurHour Sports. We're so close to 9,000 subscribers. You've been thinking about subscribing but watching the videos. Now is the time to do it. Join our Discord with the link in the description for great basketball conversations beyond the videos, and I'll see you again next time for another video.